There's something deeply painful about living surrounded by people and still feeling completely alone. It's like being in a crowd screaming and discovering that your voice doesn't echo, that no one really hears you. If you've ever felt that emptiness in your chest, that feeling that people pass by you like shadows, know that you're not imagining things. We're living through a unique moment in human history. We've never been so technologically connected, and at the same time, so emotionally disconnected. Loneliness has become a silent epidemic, and many of us carry this pain without knowing how to name what we feel. But there's a reason for all of this, and understanding it can be the first step toward finding relief. We're living through a unique moment in human history. We've never been so technologically connected and, at the same time, so emotionally disconnected. Loneliness has become a silent epidemic, and many of us carry this pain without knowing how to name what we feel. But there's a reason for all of this, and understanding it can be the first step toward finding relief. And of course, there's nothing wrong with enjoying being alone. Solitude is valuable, necessary, and can even be healing. But the problem isn't in choosing to be alone. It's in not having anyone to count on when you need them. It's in not having someone to share comfortable silence with, a sincere look, a presence that embraces you. It's not about being surrounded all the time, but about knowing that there's someone with whom you can simply be. This isn't just another video about relationships. It's an invitation to look kindly at your own journey and understand that your thirst for true connection isn't weakness. It's pure humanity. Have you ever stopped to count how many people you know today? Between followers, virtual friends, professional contacts, and social media acquaintances, it's probably hundreds, maybe thousands. And even so, how many of these people really know you? How many would call if you disappeared for a week? How many would notice if you were pretending to be fine when you're actually falling apart inside? The General Social Survey, one of the most respected studies on social changes, brought us data that should make us stop and think. The number of people who say they don't have even one close friend has tripled in recent decades. Tripled. This means that you, who might feel invisible in the world, aren't alone in this devastating feeling of disconnection. The paradox is cruel. We have more ways to communicate than any previous generation, but our conversations have never been so empty. We exchange emojis instead of hugs that last long enough to feel each other's heartbeat, likes instead of looks that really see us, automatic comments instead of words that come from hearts bleeding with honesty. You might have 500 followers, but how many really care if you woke up anxious today? You might receive dozens of happy birthday messages on your profile, but how many of those people know that you spent the day before crying? Technology gave us the illusion of closeness, but what we have are ghosts of relationships. And your heart, deep down, knows perfectly well the difference between being seen and just being noticed. This hunger for real connection that you feel isn't drama, isn't neediness, isn't weakness. It's your humanity screaming for what we all need to survive emotionally, to be truly known by someone. But why has this become so impossible to find? The answer lies in how the modern world has hijacked exactly what friendship needs most to exist. True friendship requires unhurried time. Not timed, measured, optimized time, but generous time. Time that flows slowly, that allows comfortable silences and conversations that extend into the early morning hours without a specific goal, other than simply being together, breathing the same air, sharing the same emotional space. But where is that time in your life? You're constantly racing against the clock, optimizing every minute, turning even your rest moments into productivity. Networking replaced friendship. Quality time replaced presence. Even your most intimate relationships need to be scheduled, as if love were just another item on your infinite list of urgent tasks. When was the last time you spent hours talking with someone without looking at your phone, without thinking about the next task, without worrying about schedules? When was the last time someone did that with you? When did someone give you their full attention, as if you were the only person who existed in the universe at that moment? The pressure to always be productive, always available, always on, has created a generation of exhausted people who can no longer simply exist with each other. Friendship has become a luxury that few can afford, not for lack of money, but for lack of willingness to invest time and energy in something that doesn't bring immediate and measurable returns. Taking care of a friend who's going through a difficult time doesn't generate profit, doesn't build a career, doesn't optimize anything. That's why you're deeply alone, because friendship became something too unproductive for this world that turns even love into a performance goal. And maybe you've tried to find that connection at work. After all, you spend most of your days living with the same people. You share the environment, share some laughs, maybe even occasional confidences. There's a deceiving sense of familiarity, of belonging to the group. And yet, at the end of the day, you feel empty, invisible, as if no one really knows you beyond your carefully constructed professional version. This happens because coexistence isn't connection. Being physically close doesn't mean being emotionally close. You can spend 8 hours a day next to someone and still be a complete stranger to that person. The work environment creates an artificial intimacy. People know your habits, your quirks, even some of your problems, but they don't truly know you. They don't know what keeps you awake at night, what makes you cry in the shower, what really matters to you when all the masks fall off. Professional coexistence is functional. It exists so things flow, so everyone fulfills their roles without much friction. But your human heart needs something infinitely deeper than that. It needs to be seen, understood, accepted in its totality, not just in the edited and socially appropriate version you present at the office. That's why you can be surrounded by people every day and still feel a loneliness that physically hurts in your chest. Because deep down you know that if you left that job tomorrow, most of those people would simply disappear from your life as if they had never existed. The closeness was circumstantial, not emotional. And this perception, even if unconscious, leaves a painful mark. The feeling that you're replaceable, that your presence makes no real difference in anyone's life. But what about when you try to really get close to someone? When you decide to let your guard down and show yourself authentically? Often, you run into something that has become a hallmark of our era: complete intolerance to discomfort and conflict. We live in an age of disposable bonds, where the slightest disagreement or frustration is enough reason to cut a person from our lives with the coldness of someone canceling a streaming subscription. Disagreed with your political opinion? Blocked. Disappointed you once? Cancelled. Had a moment of bad mood? Erased from your existence with a click. As sociologist Zygmunt Bauman said, "We live in times when bonds are fragile because we're afraid of getting too involved. Attachment scares us. Disconnection protects us." We've developed a deep intolerance to the emotional work that every true relationship requires. We prefer controlled solitude to the risk of being hurt, bothered, or challenged. We want people who never disappoint us, never disagree with us, never force us to grow or question our certainties. Basically, we want emotional robots programmed to constantly validate us. But here's the truth no one wants to hear. Real relationships aren't perfect. Real people disappoint us, challenge us, irritate us sometimes. True friendship isn't the absence of conflict. It's the ability to go through conflict together, to grow through differences, to remain even when it's hard, even when the other isn't at their best moment. When we cut ties at the first difficulty, we're choosing the illusion of control over the messy and unpredictable reality of human connection. We're saying we'd rather live alone than do the internal work necessary to love and be loved for real. And the result is a life surrounded by superficial relationships, where everyone walks on eggshells, afraid of being the next person canceled for not being perfect enough. This blocking culture protects us from temporary pain, but condemns us to the permanent pain of loneliness. Because in the end, whoever has never disappointed you probably never really knew you. And whoever you've never disappointed probably never felt safe enough to be authentic with you. And maybe that's exactly why you hesitate so much to truly open up. Have you ever opened up completely to someone and bitterly regretted it? Have you shown your most fragile side and been ignored, judged, or even betrayed? If so, you intimately know the pain that makes many people build emotional walls so high that no one else can scale them. Vulnerability is simultaneously the most necessary and most terrifying thing in human relationships. It's impossible to create real bonds while keeping masks on 24 hours a day. But it's absolutely terrifying to take off those masks and discover that the person on the other side isn't prepared, or doesn't want, to deal with who you really are when you stop performing normalcy. Maybe you trusted your deepest fears to someone who later used them as ammunition against you. Maybe you cried in front of someone who saw you as weak and pathetic. Maybe you shared your most intimate dreams with someone who ridiculed them. These wounds leave scars invisible to others, but that you carry as constant reminders of why it's dangerous to trust. and then you close yourself off. You build a pleasant but strategically distant social persona. You learn to smile without showing vulnerability, to talk without saying anything that really matters, to be physically present but emotionally absent. It's a form of self-preservation that makes sense, but it's also a form of emotional self-exile. The cruel paradox is that, to avoid suffering in one way, you've created a different, but equally devastating form of suffering. The loneliness of someone who's alive, breathing, functioning, but isn't truly known by anyone. And so you remain, safe in your emotional shell, but starving for the connection that only vulnerability can provide. But when did all this start to crumble? When did people stop visiting each other without a specific reason? There was a time, not so distant, when people sat on porches to talk for hours, walked together in the square on Sunday afternoons, shared meals that extended into the night simply because no one was in a hurry to leave. Leisure was naturally collective. You had fun with others. Television changed all that in a silent but definitive way. Suddenly, we had entertainment inside the house, available at any time, without needing the emotional unpredictability of dealing with other people. Why go out to talk with neighbors when there were more interesting programs on screen? Why make the effort to meet with friends when you could have fun alone, in the comfort of your own space, without emotional risks? As Bauman observed, in liquid modernity, what was once collective became private consumption. Even affection became something you watch, not live. We started preferring the controlled and predictable emotions of fiction to the complex and unpredictable emotions of real relationships. It was safer to cry with a movie than to cry with a friend. And now, we don't even share the same program anymore. Each person has their own screen, their own personalized digital world, their own tailored entertainment bubble. The algorithm knows you better than your family members. It knows exactly what will keep you glued to the screen for another 15 minutes, another hour, another whole night. Isolation became so natural that we don't even notice anymore how much we've distanced ourselves from each other. What we lost in the process weren't just hours of coexistence, but the basic ability to be in company without distraction, to find pleasure in the simple presence of others, to create shared memories that truly connect us. We traded the unpredictable richness of real life for the safe poverty of solitary entertainment. And this preference for the safe and controlled extended to how we treat people. We live in a society that taught us to discard everything. Clothes that go out of style, phones that become obsolete, furniture that wears out. And this same logic, almost without noticing, we started applying to human beings. If a friend is no longer serving our emotional needs, if they're no longer useful or convenient, if they give us more work than pleasure, we simply move on to the next one. In the liquid relations that Bauman described, everything is provisional, temporary, disposable. People enter and leave our lives like products we buy and throw away when they no longer meet our expectations. There's no patience to work through difficulties, to invest time in resolving conflicts, to grow together through the inevitable challenges of any real relationship. It's easier to swipe next and look for someone new, someone who hasn't disappointed us yet, someone who hasn't shown their human imperfections yet. It's easier to believe that somewhere out there, the perfect person exists who will never frustrate us, never go through a difficult phase, never need our patience or understanding. But true friendship doesn't work that way. It requires exactly the opposite of the consumerist mentality. Patience for bad days, long-term emotional investment, loyalty even when there's no immediate benefit. A real friend is someone who stays when you're going through your worst phase, when you have nothing to offer besides your raw and imperfect humanity. The next culture is creating generations of people who know how to start relationships, but don't know how to maintain them. Who flee at the first difficulty because they believe that somewhere out there exists the perfect person who will never disappoint them. It's an infinite race after an illusion, while we leave behind all the real possibilities for connection that require work, patience, and mutual growth. The result is a life full of acquaintances and empty of friends. Because friendship isn't something you consume. It's something you build, brick by brick, choice by choice, staying even when it's not easy, even when the other isn't at their best moment. And that's how you got to where you are now, surrounded by contacts, but starving for connection. And maybe the most silent pain of all is realizing that you've become invisible in the lives of people you thought cared about you. There's a pain that many adults carry and are deeply ashamed to admit. The pain of realizing that no one calls you spontaneously anymore. Your phone can go days without ringing with anything that isn't work or an appointment. You can disappear from social media for weeks and no one asks if you're okay. You can be going through the worst moment of your life and discover that you don't have a single person to call who really cares to listen. When we were young, it seemed natural that friends would call just to chat, that they'd make plans together, that they'd miss us when we didn't see each other for a while. But in adult life, calls became utilitarian. Someone needs something, wants to invite you to something specific, has an agenda to fulfill. Spontaneous conversations, those that happen just for the pure pleasure of hearing the other's voice, disappear like vapor. And then you find yourself checking your phone waiting for messages that don't come, remembering the last time someone reached out to you just to know how you were. Not because they needed something, not because there was a special occasion, but simply because you existed in that person's life in a meaningful way. The feeling is devastating. You've become an option, not a priority. People only remember you when they need something or when they have no one else to call. You're plan B, the second choice, the one who serves when others are busy. This is a silent emotional epidemic that affects millions of people, but few talk about it because there's deep shame in admitting that you feel forgotten, discarded, irrelevant. As if this were a reflection of your value as a person, when in reality it's a reflection of how our society has completely lost the art of cultivating friendships. You're not imagining it. You're not being dramatic. The loneliness you feel is real, it's valid, and it's shared by more people than you imagine. But no one talks about it because everyone is pretending they're fine. Everyone is performing an active social life on social media, while inside they feel completely abandoned. And maybe that's exactly what confuses you. People seem so connected online. You see happy posts, loving comments, people saying they love each other, that they miss each other. But do these digital interactions really mean anything? Social media created a language of affection that seems real but is completely empty of substance. How many automatic love yous have you seen? How many heart emojis on posts the person barely read? How many miss yous from people who could call you right now, but don't? Social media created a theater of affection, where everyone performs love but few really feel it or demonstrate it. Our primitive brain can't completely distinguish between real interaction and digital interaction. When we receive likes and comments, there's a small release of dopamine, a momentary sensation of connection and validation. But your heart knows the difference. Your heart knows that an emoji isn't a hug, that a like isn't a true presence, that 1,000 followers don't equal a single person who really knows you and cares. The danger is that these microdoses of digital validation give us the illusion that we're connected, when in reality, we're more isolated than any previous generation. We replaced deep conversations with superficial comments, real meetings with rushed video calls, physical presence with digital presence. And we think that's enough to feed our soul, but it's not. Digital presence doesn't warm you when you're emotionally cold. It doesn't hug when you're falling apart. It doesn't notice when you're pretending you're fine. Digital presence is a ghost of a relationship. It seems real from a distance, but when you try to touch it, you discover there's nothing solid there. Social media taught us to perform affection instead of feeling it, to consume relationships instead of building them. We created a highlight reel version of our emotional life, where everything seems perfect and connected, while inside we continue starving for the true connection that only real, imperfect, and vulnerable encounters can provide. And why is it so hard to have these real encounters? Because our most basic capacity for this was completely destroyed. The American Time Use Survey brought us alarming data. Since the 1960s, the time people spend in face-to-face social interaction has dropped drastically. And this isn't a coincidence. Our attention, which is the fundamental basis of any true relationship, has been completely hijacked. When was the last time you had a conversation with someone where both of you were completely present? Without a phone on the table buzzing with notifications, without your mind wandering to other tasks, without rushing to finish and move on to the next obligation on your infinite agenda? When was the last time someone listened to you, really listened, as if nothing else in the world mattered at that moment? We're addicted to constant stimuli. Our brain got used to the uninterrupted flow of notifications, news, distractions. We developed an internal restlessness that makes it almost impossible to simply be with another person without doing anything else besides being. Silence physically bothers us. Slowness drives us to despair. Depth scares us because it requires us to stay still in one emotional place for longer than we're used to. But true friendship requires exactly what we've lost: the ability to give total attention to another person. To listen not just to the words coming out of their mouth, but to the silences between them. To notice not just what's being said, but what's being carefully not said. To be present not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, as if the person in front of you were the only thing that exists in the universe at that moment. Without attention, there's no connection. Without connection, there's no love. And without love, there's only the loneliness of someone who's surrounded by people, but never truly seen, known, or loved by any of them. Our attention was hijacked by algorithms designed to addict us, and with it, our ability to love and be loved for real. And here we get to the heart of everything. Our brain was literally hacked. With every infinite scroll, every like we receive, every notification that arrives, we get a small dose of dopamine that keeps us addicted to instant and superficial gratification. The problem is that true friendship doesn't work at the mind-boggling pace of the internet. It requires patience, silences that extend comfortably, conversations that develop like plants, slowly, organically, without rushing to get anywhere. But we completely lost the ability to stay with boredom, with slowness, with the absence of constant stimuli. A conversation that takes time to unfold makes us anxious and restless. A silence that extends for more than 3 seconds makes us instinctively reach for our phone. A meeting without a defined agenda, without a clear objective, seems like a waste of time that could be used for something more productive. Our nervous system was conditioned for speed, for constant change, for perpetual novelty, and friendship happens in slowness, in comfortable repetition, in familiarity that deepens over time. We want conversations that are like TikTok videos, fast, intense, that deliver immediate satisfaction. But life's most important conversations are like rivers. They flow slowly, have meanders, sometimes stop in contemplative pools before continuing. Think about the last time you spent hours talking with someone without noticing time pass, without feeling rushed, without wanting to be somewhere else. It was probably a long time ago because our tolerance for slowness was completely destroyed by addiction to fast dopamine. The addiction to instant gratification killed our ability to emotionally invest in slow processes. And friendship is the slowest process there is. Trust is built drop by drop over years. Intimacy develops gradually, through 1,000 small shared moments. True love grows like a tree, slowly, creating deep roots. It doesn't explode like digital fireworks that shine for 3 seconds and disappear. Until we recover our tolerance for slowness, for patience, for the gradual and imperfect development of human bonds, we'll continue starving for connection, but completely incapable of nurturing it when it finally appears in our lives. But there's still hope. After understanding all these forces that work against true friendship, you might be wondering, is it still possible? In such a fragmented, accelerated, and superficial world, is it still possible to build real bonds? The answer is a categorical yes, but it will require something from you that few are willing to give. Courage to be vulnerable, presence in a world of distractions, and commitment without guarantees of return. As Bauman said, to love is to commit without guarantees. The same goes for friendship. You'll need to risk being hurt again, even after being betrayed. You'll need to invest time and emotional energy in people without knowing if they'll do the same for you. You'll need to choose depth in an era of superficiality, slowness in a world addicted to speed. Start small, but start today. Turn off your phone when you're with someone, completely, not just on silent. Ask questions that go beyond the superficial. Instead of, "How are you?" ask, "What's been weighing on your heart lately?" Call a friend just to know how they are, without wanting anything in return, without having a hidden agenda. Practice the lost art of listening without judging, of being present without rushing, of staying even when it's uncomfortable. When someone disappoints you, and they will disappoint, because we're all imperfect humans, resist the urge to cut the tie. Instead, talk. Work through the conflict, grow through the difficulty, but mainly, have infinite patience with yourself. You were conditioned by current culture just like everyone else. Recovering the ability to create true bonds is a slow process, full of relapses and moments when you'll want to give up and return to the familiar safety of superficiality. Even though we're living in a fragmented era, this doesn't mean you're condemned to perpetual loneliness. You're not invisible to the universe. You're being watched, cared for, guided by forces that go beyond human understanding. And as you clean yourself internally of old bitterness, paralyzing fears, suffocating masks, you naturally start attracting like-minded people. People who also want to love with truth, build with depth, stay even when it's hard, even when the other isn't at their best moment. People who are also tired of superficiality, who also feel hungry for something real, who are also willing to do the emotional work that true connection requires. You don't need to mold yourself to the superficial world around you. You don't need to pretend you're okay with shallow and empty relationships. You just need to not give up on being whole, authentic, vulnerably human. Because the universe sends signals all the time, whispers opportunities for real connection in the most unexpected moments. The problem is we stopped paying attention, stopped trusting, stopped believing it's possible. But when you choose depth, when you commit to authenticity, when you decide to love without guarantees, you become an emotional beacon for other hearts that are also looking for home. And you'll discover there are more people like you than you imagined. People hungry for real connection, willing to do the work, ready to build something true in a world of beautiful lies. The journey to rebuild true bonds isn't easy, but it's one of the most important things you can do for your wounded soul. If this text touched something deep in you, if you recognized your own thirst for authentic connection in these words, know that you're not alone in this search. To continue this path of self-knowledge and emotional transformation, I invite you to check out the ebook, Alchemy and Archetypes, which has practical exercises that can help you in this process. Check it out in the first pinned comment. And if this content made sense to you, if it helped you name something you were feeling but couldn't express, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like, not just as an automatic gesture, but as a way of saying that you also believe in the possibility of deeper and truer relationships in a world that so desperately needs them.